the differentiator. We're building this plant completely modular in large modules. We're building most of those modules in Asia, and then the tanks are even going to be built modular. Those we'll build in Corpus Christi and in Louisiana as well, and then bring them over to the site. The logic about the building modular is not only the speed and the cost benefit, but also the fact that we can run in parallel.
So let's talk about Commonwealth LNG. Tell us about your company. For those of us who, and even I, do not know much about the company. So tell us, what is the breadth and scope of the company?
We started the company 7 years ago. We have a site in Cameron, Louisiana, Cameron Parish, Louisiana. It's right on the Gulf of Mexico and the Cameron Ship Channel. It's a great site and a great location, about 400 acres. We will be building a liquefaction facility that will produce 8.4 million tons a year of nameplate capacity and a maximum of about 9.5 million tons a year. We are through most of the expensive and painful part of the FERC process. We're down to the final steps, which is the environmental impact statement. We are moving with great haste now on securing offtake. I must confess the pandemic certainly slowed that down. But now it appears that the market is rebounding nicely, and we're seeing a real pickup in not only us, but our competitors as well, pickup in customers willing to consider long-term offtake contracts. Our project hopes to close FID at the end of next year, a little over a year from now, and then in 3 years be out producing. That's remarkably quick for a project of this size. We have 6 trains that are each 1.4 million tons per annum each train. We have 6 LNG storage tanks, which is a large number, but the tanks are a bit smaller at 50,000 cubic meters each. And the logic is this. Here's the differentiator. We're building this plant completely modular in large modules. We're building most of those modules in Asia, and then the tanks are even going to be built modular. Those we'll build in Corpus Christi and in Louisiana as well, and then bring them over to the site. The logic about the building modular is not only the speed and the cost benefit, but also the fact that we can run in parallel. We can be building site grading, putting in foundations, pilings, footings, while we're fabricating the modules. When the modules are ready, so is their foundations, and we're able to deliver them and set them on their foundations. We hope to do most of the work in the fab yards, down to and including things like half loop checks on all the instruments or wiring in all the electrical. So literally when the modules arrive, the process modules, they are literally plug and play. They come in, we power them up, and the lights come on if everything's worked right.
Oh, wow.
And the loop checks go from half loops to full loops by connecting back in to the control room, which is a central control room, but just through a junction box. So again, my career in engineering and construction serves us very well. Our company is engineering and construction focused. We do have our share of financial experts and lawyers and commercial people, but the lion's share and the core of what we think about every day is engineering, because of the very fact that LNG, like it or not, is a commodity. And this commodity is, commodities like all commodities are driven mostly by cost. It's hard to differentiate the chemistry. The molecules are the molecules, but cost is a dictator in this case. In every one of these cases, with such large CapEx expenditures in the billions, CapEx drives the largest cost item in the operation, and that's debt service. So if you can keep CapEx down, and if you can relentlessly control CapEx by doing everything possible technically to make it a great plant, great performer, but also economic, then you stand a very good chance of being able to offer customers very attractive pricing for your product. To me, that is the key to survival, and that's what we think we've got that differentiates us from many others, particularly in stick building. Sadly, my career in engineering and construction spans more than 50 years. And during that time, most of that time, I built stick built all over the world. I hired people. They came to the site, thousands of people.
Yes.
My career in Fluor was all over the world in terms of projects we were building. Today, here in America, it's very difficult to find 8 or 9 or 10,000 craftsmen to
Yes.
come to a site, particularly a remote site like
Yes.
ours in Louisiana. We
Yes.
love our site, but it's not really near too much. In fact, we fondly say it's not the end of the earth, but you can see it from there.
Yes.
We think that our site, however, would be difficult to bring in thousands and thousands of workers. So this modular approach is the way to go. It's not only less expensive, it's less of an impact on a very small local community where infrastructure, roads are 2-lane roads. They're not made for a lot of traffic. They're not made for heavy traffic. By minimizing the amount of man hours in the field and putting it more in fab yards, we are better neighbors to our friends who are going to ultimately be our neighbors for the next 20 or 30 years.
Yes, I love the approach there. In fact, I have several questions that come to mind. And as a layperson, will these modules have the ability to operate independently of each other? So you could operate 3 of them at one time, and then if you need, if there is enough demand, then you go to all 6, or do you have the freedom to do that?
Oh yeah, the modules will be paired up. There is a gas pretreatment module and a liquefaction module. They are paired up. There are a total of 12 modules making up the 6 trains. The trains run independently, and so each train has
And
a
would you
gas
help us
pretreatment.
understand what is a train? What is a train?
A train in this case is one module that takes the gas in and pre-treats it, gets out the water and all of the metals and everything else, and conditions it so that it can move to the second module, which is the liquefaction module, where it is refrigerated. The gas is refrigerated down to minus 273 degrees, in which case it becomes then liquid natural gas, LNG.
Yes.
And from there it is pumped into one of 6 tanks. So here you see a tank, and each of those 2 modules, that's a train, and we have 6 of those, and they run independently. And what's important about that is if we have downtime on one train, we lose 1/6 of our production. Well, it's not great. It's better than losing, if you only had 2 trains, you could lose 50% of your production if one of your units went down.
So would this also allow you the flexibility of bringing them online as you're building it? You said in 3 years you will have the plant commission. Will this allow you to bring up, the first train up, then the second train, and so on, over a certain period of time, or does all?
Yeah. We will start them up a train at a time. We hopefully go through a learning curve. That first one will be probably our most challenging, and then by the time you get to the 6th train, it will run very well in terms of the startup of those. We see that accelerating through that period. I would also remind you, from an engineer standpoint, the trains are identical to one another, as are the tanks. I say that because you engineer it once, and then you build it 6 times. And that, to me, is, again, a redundancy that saves money and effort as we do that.
Yes, and actually, I love that point, because maybe, I don't know if you do, but if you have options on the neighboring land, then you could take from 6 trains to go to 18 trains if if you start having a lot of success. Could you?
I want to get the 6 trains working right now.
Yes, sir, Ravi, let me get there first before I get ahead of myself.
I have some junior guys who can run the next 6 trains, but I just want the first 6 to be up and running.